Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Melissa. I lead the Florida Teen Safe Driving Coalition, and today we will be talking fast and fatal, discussing the dangers of speed racing and destructive driving. Join us as we delve into the adrenaline-fueled world of high-speed racing and reckless driving. Our panel will shed light on the alarming risks and consequences that are associated with these dangerous practices. Discover the importance of promoting responsible driving habits and fostering a culture of safety on our roads. Don't miss this opportunity to be part of the solution and protect lives in the fast lane. If this is your first webinar that you're attending with us, welcome. We have 4 other webinars this week, all of which focus on different teen safe driving topics. All of the webinars can be found posted on our Teen Driver Safety Week landing page, which is located on the Florida Teen Safe Driving Coalition website, where you found this video. As a reminder, 20 people will randomly be selected to win a Chick-fil-A gift card. To be eligible, you must be a Florida high school student, you must watch the entirety of this webinar, and you must complete your post-survey quiz by Saturday, the 21st at midnight. You will need to be present through the entire webinar to get the code words and information to answer the questions in the quiz at the end. I'd like to introduce you to our first speaker, and that is Miss Tess Rowland. Tess Rowland is the National President of Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Today, she will address the current state of impaired driving in this country and what MADD is doing to address the crime. Rowland also shared she is connecting with fellow Gen Zers to discuss how they play a critical role in preventing the crime.
Hello, my name is Tess Rowland, and I'm the MADD National President. Thank you so much for attending this session. So Mothers Against Drunk Driving, or MADD, was founded in 1980 by a mother, Candy Leitner. You can see her on the left of your screen. Her daughter was Carrie, and Carrie was killed in a drunk driving crash at just 13 years old. And this really sparked a nationwide movement across the country. And in our 43-year history, we are responsible for reducing drunk driving deaths by more than 50%, changing numerous laws such as lowering the legal blood alcohol concentration limit and adopting the 21 minimum age drinking law in all 50 states, and we have also been able to support nearly 1 million victims of this crime. Our mission is simple. We want to end drunk and drug driving, support victims of these crimes, and prevent underage drinking. We do this through a variety of ways, by supporting public policy change, as well as the advancement of technology to prevent these crimes, supporting education for underage drinking, drug use, and drunk driving, also by promoting fair and equitable traffic safety and enforcement, and also supporting victims and survivors of these crimes. So some of our programs include victim services. So each victim that comes through our system is given what's called a victim advocate, and this person can provide a variety of services at no cost to the victim, such as court accompaniment, as well as emotional support. And we also have a 24-hour hotline to support victims and survivors at any time. Another program is our Victim Impact Panel, in which we educate first-time DUI offenders about the impacts of DUI through victim stories, as well as offenders sharing their stories about how they've been impacted by this crime, in hopes that we can inspire these offenders to never make the choice to reoffend. Our Power of Youth series is when we go to schools and we educate middle and high school students about the detrimental impacts of alcohol and cannabis on a developing brain, as well as the importance of never making the choice to drive or ride with a driver that is impaired. Our Power of Parents series educates parents about how they can support their children and play an active role in preventing underage drinking, as well as substance use, and of course, preventing their child from making the choice to drive while impaired when they become an adult. I became national president of this organization earlier this year at 24 years old, and many students that I engage with often are shocked that I am not a mother myself, and that's because I share with them that this crime can impact anyone from any walk of life at any time. And the saddest part is that these crashes are 100% preventable. In 2021, I was a recent college graduate who was living my dream as a television reporter in Panama City Beach, Florida. May 4th, 2021 was supposed to be just a normal Tuesday morning. I was headed into work, working the morning shift. I was going the same way that I always did when suddenly I saw bright headlights coming right at me, and I had no time to react. I had been hit head on by a wrong way drunk driver with drugs in the car, and the driver who hit me was driving home after celebrating his 22nd birthday. I went from being a healthy 22-year-old who had never broken a bone in my life to needing several emergency surgeries for fractures to my shoulder, arm, elbow, and knee. And I also had internal injuries as well. So to date, I've had 7 surgeries. I have metal throughout my entire right side. I live in chronic pain. And the saddest part about my future is that I'll likely need more surgeries. I recently found out that my shoulder is still broken, as many of the plates and screws in my body are now backing out. And I also want to take this time to say that drunk driving impacts more than those who are just in the car during the time of the crash. My parents got that phone call that no parent ever wants to receive. They were down in South Florida at the time of my crash, and my mom made the 9-hour drive from South Florida to Panama City Beach to be by my side. And in that moment, she quit her job and she stayed with me in my 1-bedroom apartment for a year and a half. And she was the reason that I was able to feed myself, dress myself, and quite literally get back on my feet. And that's when I became aware of the issue of drunk driving. I truly thought that it was a thing of the past. And despite so many options in our world today, drunk driving is unfortunately on the rise, killing or injuring someone every 79 seconds in this country. And sadly, we know that in 2021, the highest percentage of drunk drivers were the 21 to 24-year-old age group and the 25 to 34-year-old age group. And this statistic is all too real for me. I was 22 years old at the time of my crash, and so was the drunk driver who hit me. And he is now in prison for 3 years. And I said to him in court that we both suffered consequences from his choice that were completely preventable. And that's why I'm committed to reaching young adults throughout my presidency. MAD has now launched Gen Zero, and this is a coalition made up of young adults from around the country to help MAD take to social media to rewrite the narrative surrounding drunk and drug driving. We hope to change attitudes, perceptions, and behaviors associated with substance use and impaired driving. If you would like to join Gen Zero, please utilize the QR code on your screen. I am also launching the College Listening Tour series, in which I conduct confidential conversations regarding topics of impaired driving, underage drinking, and substance use on college campuses to help better inform our program. So all data that is collected in these conversations is anonymized and kept in-house at our organization, but we really hope that these open discussions promote a culture of social responsibility and removes the stigma surrounding these topics. Thanks so much for your time and for listening, and I hope that you too can be a part of Generation Zero, the generation in which no one is impacted by the 100% preventable crime of drunk driving. And should you want to contact me, please use my email on the screen. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Adam Mandel. Adam is a New York native who has been in Florida for almost 10 years now. A University of Florida graduate, Adam now looks to conquer the legal world and get involved in the nonprofit sphere as much as possible. He is here today to share his personal story in hopes of preventing similar reckless tragedies from occurring in the future.
Hello, my name is Adam Mandel. I'm originally from New York and have lived in Florida for almost 10 years now. I'm 22 years old and I graduated from the University of Florida in 2020. And I intend to go to law school. I plan to make a difference one individual at a time. That's just about how my introduction would have sounded had it not been for one fateful night in my life. This is a picture of my mom and I in Gainesville, Florida, right after I graduated from college in 2020. This is a picture from the same year, also in Gainesville, Florida. But I look a little bit different, don't I? I was 19 years old in my last semester at the University of Florida. I had the world at my fingertips, about to graduate a top 5 public university before I was even 20 years old. The finish line was in sight. My vision was to graduate undergrad from the University of Florida and then immediately continue my education by going to law school. That was my plan, at least. Being young in college is kind of like being a kid in a candy shop. So much freedom, so many vices to choose from, be it drugs, alcohol, or women, or in my case, all three, and so little impulse control. But at the end of the day, there's always a choice to be made, and that choice is always yours. No one can take that from you. I lived with my girlfriend in Gainesville for almost 3 years. She was an amazing young woman, and we had been dating for quite some time prior to us moving in together. She was my life at that time in my life, and I was more than sure that she would be my future wife. I would do anything for her. One night we were out celebrating our 3-year anniversary. We decided to go to this cool new wine bar that we've been hearing about that just opened up downtown. So we went. I was 19 and my girlfriend was 20. No one asked for our IDs. We drank, we laughed, we celebrated. Then after a couple of bottles of wine, we decided to leave. We walked out. I opened the passenger side door of my car for her, let her inside, and then walked to the driver's side of my vehicle like I did every time we would go out. This time, however, would be different. This time would be the last time I would ever do so. This time was the last time I'd ever see my girlfriend alive. The last time I'd ever hold her hand, and the last time I would ever feel her touch as I lowered into my car. I was 16 years old when I first moved to Gainesville. I was 19 years old when first in the back of a police car being driven to the county jail. The next thing I remember is waking up in the middle of the hospital with 2 police officers standing at the bed. Shocked, not knowing where I was or what had happened, the cops informed me that I had been in a car crash. I asked where my girlfriend was, and the 2 cops just kind of looked at each other until one eventually stated, "Son, I don't know how to tell you, but your girlfriend didn't make it. She died at the scene of the car crash." The officer then proceeded to show me a picture of my girlfriend in order to have me verify her identity. I did, and then 2 officers walked away, leaving me alone to process the conversation that had just occurred. That was on January 9th, 2020, and it was the beginning of a paradigm shift in my life. What I didn't include in that brief introduction was my history of driving up to that fatal car crash on January 9th, 2020. As you can see on this slide here, I've had quite a history of bad driving prior to my fatal car crash. This was my 3rd car crash, not my first time speeding, and not my first time driving recklessly. Ever since I was young and first got my learner's permit, I wanted to go fast, and go fast I definitely did. Not only in my life, but also in my vehicle. I was a young man. I thought I was invincible, and I never thought it would catch up to me. No one ever does. The reality is that I got away with my reckless driving for quite some time without any real repercussions or consequences, and that enabled me to continue to make careless choices. Time after time, all I would get would be a slap on the wrist for my poor choices. At the root of it, that is eventually what led to my fatal car crash on January 9, 2020, the one in which my girlfriend had passed away. It was a series of terrible choices over a period of time that culminated in the most consequential moment of my life. Because of the choice I made on that fateful night, my life, my girlfriend's life, and the lives of everyone who knew us would be forever changed. Actions have consequences. And unfortunately, I had to learn that through my own experience the hard way. Luckily for you, you don't have to do the same. Not only did I cause the death of my girlfriend, which is something I have to live with for the rest of my life, but the consequences of that one choice I made almost 4 years ago impacted my life in more ways than you could ever imagine. On December 15th, 2020, I was sentenced to 6 years on the charge of DUI manslaughter, 3 years to be served in prison, and 3 years to be served on probation, earning me the title of convicted felon for life. I almost lost my degree. I was expelled from my college. I did 30 out of 36 months in the state facility. This is my time in my life that I'll never, ever, ever get back. I miss birthdays. I miss weddings. I miss my family. I miss my nephew being born. I miss my friends. Even now, although I am free, I am unable to drive. I'm unable to leave the county without permission. I have to report to my probation officer once a month. I have to report almost everything to my probation officer. If I want to move to a new apartment, I have to inform her. If I get a new job, I have to inform her. If I want to see my friends, I have to inform her. All of which are just the most basic rules for my probation. I'm also subject to random alcohol and drug tests. I have to pay approximately $100 a month for my supervision. And I have to do this all for the next 3 years of my life. But even when this time expires, it won't be over. This will be something that will be over my head for the rest of my life. I've had difficulties finding employment due to the fact that I am a convicted felon. I've had difficulties finding apartments due to my felony conviction. And I know that it will not get easier as time goes on. All this stemming from one fateful night in which I made the wrong choice. I drank, I drove, I sped. I killed my girlfriend in the worst of all ways because I didn't make the correct choice. Choices. We all have choices. I made a lot of choices on that tragic night. Whether or not to drive my vehicle knowing I was intoxicated. I also had the choice to speed or not, which, although inhibited by my intoxication, wasn't much of a choice, but it was still a decision I had to make in that moment. I had the choice of whether or not to allow my girlfriend to enter the car. My girlfriend had the choice to trust me and get into the vehicle with me or not. I say that not to take away responsibility from my actions and the cause of her death, but to highlight the fact that we all have choices. You, as the passenger, do not have to get in the vehicle with someone you know is intoxicated. I think about it all the time. Could have taken an Uber, could have walked, could have had friends pick us up, but I didn't. I made the wrong choice, and now I live with the consequences of that single tragic choice, and I will for the rest of my life. But again, you don't have to do the same. I cannot change the past, but what I can and will do is everything in my power to prevent future tragedies like mine from ever occurring. There is no reason why preventable deaths like my girlfriend should ever have to occur. Over 135,000 crashes in Florida involved alcohol, which killed approximately 1,200 people and injured an estimated 50,000. Alcohol is a factor in 25% of Florida crashes. Almost 1/3 of all traffic fatalities in the nation, as well as in Florida, are due to speeding. And it's increasing for both speeding and drunk driving. It is our duty to keep preventable deaths like this from ever occurring. If I were to ask you, have you ever driven over the speed limit? Have you ever been in a car with someone who was speeding? Have you ever been in a car with someone who had been drinking? Have you ever driven the car after you've been drinking yourself? I believe all of you, if you were being honest, would say yes. This has to stop, and it starts with you. It is reckless, careless, and pointless to make these poor choices. I implore you to take from my story the reality that this is not a game. It's life and death out there. And as individuals, we have the ability to make right choices. We have a responsibility to make right choices. No one can make choices for you. It is entirely up to you. And by taking a stand, others will follow. With enough information, enough courage, and with enough faith, you can overcome the impulsive desires, the influence of friends, and the thrill of driving thoughtlessly. More than that, you can start a movement by making the right choices at the right times and leading through example. My name is Adam J. Mandel, and thank you for listening to my story.
We are halfway through our webinar today, so I'm going to share the special code word needed to complete the post-webinar survey for a chance to win that free Chick-fil-A gift card. Today's word is reckless. Again, that is reckless. RECKLESS. You will need to remember this word for the post survey to be eligible to win. Our next speaker is Scott Lagasse Jr. Scott Lagasse Jr. is an American professional NASCAR driver. He formerly drove in the NASCAR Camping World Series, and he is the son of former sports car and NASCAR driver Scott Lagasse Sr. He is also the owner of Scott Lagasse Racing and M1 Race Cars, which is located in St. Augustine, Florida. He is a girl dad through and through. So Scott, we are super excited to have you with us. Tell us and our listeners a little bit about you and what you work on.
Thank you for having me. Huge honor. The safety is a big and important part. And unfortunately, the roads are getting more crowded nowadays, and therefore you're seeing more and more fatal accidents. So for me personally, very fortunate race car driver as a career. What I call a successful one, maybe not as successful as I wanted it, but still pretty good. And then recently have been somehow transitioned in from student to teacher. And have went from a guy that was kind of bred to be about himself and focus on one thing to find an enjoyment in training others. And been very fortunate to train or be a part of the training on some of NASCAR's newest stars. And really excited about who we're working with nowadays, whether it's Sam Mayer, Sammy Smith, Connor Mozak. I mean, the list goes on and on of the kids I've had the opportunity to work with and help. So for me, it's fun because I was that kid, and now I get to kind of go back and say, hey, don't do this, do this. I messed this up, try that. And really finding a ton of enjoyment in doing it. And then you finished it by a girl dad, 3 daughters. So I'm old and moving on in life, I guess.
Well, it sounds like you have a lot of expertise to offer this conversation. And I certainly know that as we get further in our discussion, one of the things that we're really going to talk about is really those differences on the road between what a professional race car driver experiences, the equipment and tools that they have at their disposal, versus your every average day rider on our main roads that we traffic. So I won't waste any of our time. I'll move forward right into our direct questions because we've got a lot to go over. So I want to talk to you about the allure of speed. When we talk about teens and driving, why do you think speed is an enticing component for young drivers?
It's fun, right? Like, I mean, I'm as big a junkie at that as anyone there is. Grew up on a motocross bike, raced go-karts, race anything and everything, dirt, asphalt, road courses that you can imagine. Fortunately, growing up, I was around a father that did it as well and understood it. And so I kind of was lucky enough to go get that need out of my system on racetracks and in facilities that were designed for that with the safety measures in place. So I'm kind of, I didn't really get into a lot of that speeding and those types of things. It just never clicked on me because I got it done, every weekend as a kid.
Sure. Yeah. And you keyed in on a really important part of that, which is that adrenaline, that rush, right? I think a lot of the times teens, they've got so much excitement in their life that maybe that's another thing that they're experiencing or a reason that's maybe pushing them to make that risky choice. So yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned, though, that you were conducting that behavior on a closed course, which is a really interesting segue to the next part of the key differences between racing on a closed track and driving on public roads. What do you think are the different safety measures or regulations that are in place in those different spots?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it, the stuff that goes, the safety measures that go into our stuff is just amazing these days. I mean, from crash testing race cars to 7 points on your seat belts, literally 7 seat belts that come to 1 point. Protective foams, fire retardant systems, man, the amount of technology that goes into what we're doing nowadays really have been in racing for a long time. A lot of that's spearheaded by NASCAR, and it would blow your mind the amount of resources that they put into keeping us safe as individuals. Full medics, safety crews that know you through and through. To the point of one point I took a medicine for allergies, and they called me and said, you shouldn't take that, it upsets your stomach. So here's the NASCAR nurse calling me, say, Scott, your doctor prescribed this for you, but don't take it. So, you look at not only the car, the people and team around you, but then you go to the facilities, right? And forget you're with professionals on the racetrack that race inches apart and are used to what you're going to do, to know what you're going to do ahead of time. And then you just go to the facilities in general. I mean, you look at catch fences and safer walls, which are, walls that actually give so that it doesn't hurt as bad. The walls are put at certain angles, so when you do wreck, it's a glance and not a dead stop. Man, it's amazing to me. It's to be honest with you, as a racer, as a driver, when you sit in one of their seminars and they ask you to do that as a driver, it's pretty humbling that when you look at the amount of technology, resources, money, and care that they put into us. So then you turn around and you go onto the street and you've got oak trees and rocks and, streets that aren't as smooth because they can't be the way they're designed. They've got, they're off camber or they have tilt to get rain off of them. They're dirty because maybe a road flooded. There's a lot of parameters you can't control, that you sneak up on and you're just unaware of. So it's really, for me, there's no real comparison in the differences now that I understand what the differences are. I didn't at that age, for sure, at a younger age.
Oh, that's such great insight. And I'm really also focusing on that word control, right? That difference, a lot of what you're describing on that closed track, you guys are accounting for so many different things and controlling the other people that are in your vicinity. And I think when we're on that public road driving, just, you've got every person on the road under every experience level or every mental different state or distraction that's going on the road, right? There's a lot of things outside of that control.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things I've noticed is from the racing side, I see things a lot quicker, a lot further ahead. We're trained to put our eyes way far up, so you kind of see 4, 5, 6 cars ahead of you. Your mind processes everything in between naturally because that's what you're trained to do. And you kind of always have an escape. You're wired to have an escape plan, right? Because if you wreck, you don't finish the race. And it's years and years of training. Like I said, there's eye techniques we use. There's certain tests we do to kind of get better at that. But more times than not, when I see an accident gonna happen on the road, or it's typically somebody that's just unaware of their surroundings, or you've got somebody that's aware of what's going on, trying to make a pass to somebody else that's unaware. And so, I've come to the conclusion that I assume people don't know I'm there. It's one of the simple things I do personally is when I see somebody pull up to a stop sign, I watch their front wheel. Once the front wheel stops, that tells me they're actually stopping. If their front wheel starts to roll a little bit, you'll recognize that. My eyes will recognize that quicker than the whole car moving. Wow. So there's just little things as a racer you kind of learn to key in on. None of it really needs to be taught or taught, but the biggest thing I can come from is the more I see out in front, the more I see problems not happening. And then I pretend that everyone knows I'm not.
Yeah, that's a great strategy. I feel like, defensive driving 101 is that, expectation that nobody knows what you're about to do. So you should always be on the defense of what, could happen along the way. But I want to key in on something you said about always looking ahead. And you mentioned training that you had. I know that your dad was also a professional race car driver. Is this something that you feel like, from the time you were little, you grew up kind of in this world or in this subject matter?
It's yeah, I think it is. There's you take in things, right? I see that with one of my best friends whose dad's very smart in finance, and he's way smarter in finance than I am, and vice versa, right? So we kind of admire each other for different things. But I did grow up around it. Fortunately, he was one of the better ones and known to be one of the better teachers and still is today. So I had that. But then I've since evolved into higher, extremely high levels of racing with resources that, I mean, I look at it now, what we're doing with kids today and the training systems that I say kids, they're, 14 to 18 that I'm working with typically right now. And these are professional level kids that will be paid to drive race cars or are being paid to drive race cars. But the technology that we're putting into them with simulations and iRacing training, hand-eye technique, but the single biggest thing that always helps, and the way I can explain it is if you're driving down the interstate, look at the dots right in front of your car and see how quick they go, then move your eyes up further out and see how slow they look like they're going. It really kind of just helps. Your mind will process that stuff, but it's really just getting out in front of problems, and again, I go back to, I don't speed on the street. It blows people's minds that I get asked the question all the time, what do you drive for a car? I drive a pickup truck. I have no interest in any sports cars are going fast on the street. It's once you do it at a racetrack, you see somebody do it on the street, you just giggle like, haha, such a tool. Like,
yeah, right?
They don't know. Like, you just kind of laugh when you see somebody do that on the street because you kind of know the next level.
How prepared they are and the consequences that can really arise from that behavior. Yeah, I could totally see how that's something that, once you're playing at the pro level, it's easy to look at the rest of it and go, how could you be so foolish to do something like that?
Which is,
Yeah.
yeah, just the to go fast at the professional level, it's all about discipline and technique.
Hmm.
There's obviously a raw skill set that goes into it, but it's not this go crazy on the streets or drive wild. It's the winners don't operate that way, and so it
I
just the
feel like
speeding on the
that's
streets doesn't really. I don't get it. I mean, the other thing I've always looked at is if you've got a 10-mile drive at 60 miles an hour, it's going to take you 10 minutes, right? You'd have to go 120 miles an hour in that 10 miles to be 5 minutes faster. And really, what's that going to gain you in the scheme of things in life, you know? But you get pulled over, you're going to be sitting there for a lot longer than 5 minutes, and who knows what your parents or anybody else will think. So I just look at things differently than most people.
yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, I think that you're uniquely positioned to have a point of view that is different than most of us because you live in that world where when it's done properly, professionally, and safely, it's like apples to oranges in a comparison of why anyone would do that on a public road. So, yeah, tell me a little bit about any real life examples that you have. Have you been in or experienced any consequences of speeding or aggressive driving? Have you watched teens do this on the road?
I mean,
What's your
obviously you see a lot of the stuff happen all the time. You know, and you want when I see something like that happen, I want nothing more than to go grab him and say, "Stop, dude!" Like, and it's not always a guy, but you know, you just so it'd be I have the last big accident I was in. A guy pulled out in front of one of my best friends that was driving. Fortunately, he was a professional race car driver, and we just happened to be riding together. And I'm fairly certain that his eyes up, knowing what to do, saved this guy's life and probably kept us from tumbling. So, um, again, I fortunately, knock on wood, I have not been in many accidents or any, and I attribute it to I just take my time. Like I don't really speed. I surely don't in town. I mean, I'm scared to death of a kid shooting out of a in between cars and you're not seeing them. I mean, just for me, it'd be what would that leave me the rest of my life and
yeah.
that parent, right? So I kind of think through that. Again, I grew up when I won my first big stock car race before I was driving on the street legally.
Wow.
So I've kind of just always done it. And after you hit hard a couple times, even with all the safety gear we have around us, you realize it can hurt. It does hurt,
The
you know.
consequences, yeah,
So
can be more than just a bruise. Yeah, for sure. Well, so tell me a little bit. You mentioned that you have a program that works with young drivers. If there are any teens out there that might have that need for speed, and hopefully they're listening to this message and they're now going to think twice about ever doing that on a public road again, but maybe they're intrigued by this idea that there are programs out there or ways to get involved in the professional racing circuit. How would they do that? What would they look to do?
there's a lot of different ways. There's your local racetracks, whether it be dirt or asphalt. There's local go-kart tracks. There's groups called like Sports Car Club of America, NASA, um, Sports Car Vintage Racing, SVRA, Trans Am. There's all kinds of different groups, and you'd be surprised the racing community is made up of a lot of older gentlemen and ladies, more experienced, that welcome people, whether it be to work on their cars, to be around it, to drive them. Like you would be really surprised what just kind of nosing around and trying to get into this world will do to you. But I always like to go to local go-kart tracks and have fun. And then just again, it's recognizing your surroundings. It's understanding that, the speed limit's there for a reason. It's not, and a lot of times I'll tell you, I've been on a lot of roads. I look at speed limit, I'm like, there's no way I'm going the speed limit here. It's just like, especially where there's tight condensed quarters and kids could be playing. For me, that's a big deal. So, man, it's the penalties are way too big emotionally long term if you were to hurt somebody in my mind. For me,
Yeah.
living with hurting somebody I don't know that I could do that. And so I just was wired that way from being around it my whole life.
Yeah, again, it's a very unique perspective that you bring. I think even teens today, the ones that hopefully are listening to this message, I don't know that they think that far ahead, or maybe the thought process is, well, it could happen, but it's never going to happen to me. And
Yeah. Yeah.
that's the one that hopefully, if just one person hears maybe some of your insights on that, knowing that there's other opportunities to exercise that need for speed they might have, but in more of a controlled and safe setting, using those tools that go into it, maybe that'll help move the needle.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a ton of resources out there for sure. I mean, the Florida Department of Transportation has all kinds of resources on their website. Their Alert Today program, obviously your program with the Teen Safe Driver Coalition. There's just, when I look at how many people want to help, it really is just go ask for the help or recognize that you may need it, right? Like that's probably the biggest thing I learned from a young age is the first thing I ever raced, I thought I was good because I could just go wide open and drive it sideways and do all this stuff. And then I realized I really wasn't that good. Like it's not what it takes to go win races and be respected at that level.
So let's change it up a little bit. Let's talk about peer pressure. What are some ways that you think teens can help resist the urge for speed and aggressive driving? Maybe if they're a passenger in the car, or even just if they're a driver, how can they get away from that peer pressure that's, to look cool among their friends?
I mean, the simplest thing for me in my mind is look at what race car drivers do. They don't get speeding tickets. They just don't. I mean, it's number one, if we got a speeding ticket professionally, that's not good. And from a whether it's a sponsor standpoint or really it's not good in general. But none of my buddies really speed. We all just kind of cruise around and like I said, you'll be surprised the vehicles that we drive. And it's not that that we don't have access to the stuff. It's no fun. We were giggling earlier about it. My favorite vehicle ever was a 4-cylinder pickup truck with a 5-speed because I had to actually drive it really hard on the interstate and draft to even go the speed limit. And here I had access to any kind of sports car. I have access to anything I want right now from friends or what I have, whether it be stuff we have at our shop. So, I mean, I think from a peer pressure standpoint, what bigger peer pressure could it be if you're trying to be cool? The race car drivers aren't doing that. You think about the last time you saw a race car driver get a speeding ticket. It just doesn't
it's probably
happen.
not a resume booster. It's not something that gives you guys extra credit at work.
No. I mean, I literally the only speeding ticket I have was on accident and a pure mistake on my part. I left a racetrack. Yeah, I left Talladega from running around all day at 180 miles an hour, and it dropped from 70 to 65, and I got a 70 and a 65 or something like that. I was kind of surprised I got it, but I got it, and I owned up to it.
All right.
But it's it just doesn't happen. So when I look at peer pressure, I kind of say who are you trying to be cool to? Like people that don't know. Okay, great. But again, I look at the world weird in that regard. So I'm pretty sure scaring a girl in the passenger seat of your car is not going to pull any. The older I've gotten, I'd realize that probably wouldn't have worked, and even if I tried it. So, so there you throw the girl thing out the window, right? Because you're not going to impress them with something dumb when they're in the car, especially. Your buddy probably couldn't drive anyway, so take him to a local go-kart track and beat up on him for fun. Those are the kind of things I would have done just when somebody gave me a hard time about not wanting to go fast on the street. I said, okay, let's go go-kart track. We'll finish it. We'll solve this one real quick, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that all roads lead back to getting to that controlled environment. That's really, I think, the
why not, right?
Yes.
Why not?
Absolutely. Well, Scott, I so appreciate your time today. I think you've given us so much to think about, and our audience a lot to think in terms of you have a choice out there. Use those resources at your disposal. Find that local area in your community that you can go to exercise your need for speed in a safe, controlled environment. Is there anything else that you would like to leave our listening audience with?
I just want to thank you guys for having me, really, and for what you do. I know you guys have a lot of tireless hours of work that's probably not appreciated as much as it is, but thank you guys for what you do. It's fun to be a part of it.
Oh, thank you so much, Scott. We very much appreciate you.
Be safe.
Our next speaker is Lily Trujillo Puckett. She is the founder and CEO of Street Racing Kills, a nonprofit that was started after her daughter was tragically killed due to a street racing crash. She is here today to discuss the dangers of high speed and speed racing.
Hello, my name is Lily Trujillo Puckett, and I am the founder of Street Racing Kills. Welcome to the Fast and Fatal Team Traffic Safety presentation. We're going to talk a little bit what is SRK. Well, SRK is a nonprofit organization that was founded in 2014 by Lily Trujillo and myself after my 16-year-old daughter was killed by a young man who was street racing. Our mission is to save lives by mentoring and creating awareness regarding the dangers of illegal street racing and reckless driving. The media portrays speed as fun and exciting, as you know. We see it on TikTok, we see it on Instagram, and on car commercials and in movies. The truth is, the consequence can be emotionally damaging. According to the Florida Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles, there were 7,710 citations issued for either street racing or stunt driving in Florida between 2018 and 2023. But today, I want to show you a little bit more of what speed can do. As you can see, here is a car that looks out of a movie. There was two cars that were street racing, and one ended up inside a house. On the other side, you see an image of a girl, and it says, "I am 7 times more likely to die if you hit me at 30 miles per hour. 30 miles per hour. It doesn't seem that fast, does it? But as you can see, this is some of the damage that can happen. What I'm going to do today is share you Valentina, my daughter, my 16-year-old daughter. And that's what we say, Valentina, forever 16. This is my baby girl. This is my daughter. Valentina was a junior in high school in Los Angeles, California, in the city of Torrance. She was having a lot of fun. She had a lot of girlfriends by then. She had her group. She loved texting. She loved her brand new iPhone. She was really, really enjoying life and going to the beach, sleepovers, going to the mall, going to the movies, buying clothes, just celebrating her birthday parties. Her 16th was a beautiful party. She had so much fun. As much as she and I did, we never thought we would ever be separated by speed, by a crash, by tragedy. You see, in December 6, 2013, she asked me if she could spend it at her best friend's house. And that would happen all the time. Either they would spend it at our house or she would go to their house. So I was like, sure, okay, I'll go pick you up and I'll take you guys there. By the time I got there, they were like, oh, can you take me to another friend's house, please? And they wanted to go visit her friend that was not feeling well. After that, they decided to go to a party. The party, her girlfriend was not feeling well. Unfortunately, there was a party where there was alcohol and she got really sick. So Valentina took care of her and said, let's just go home. Take us to our sleepover. Yes, she asked her girlfriend's friend. He was the one that took him there. He was a week shy of 18. At this moment, I'm sleeping at my house. I fell asleep waiting for her phone call because she would always call me. Or either text me, and then I would call her, and she would always tell me where she was. And what woke me up was a phone call telling me that she had been in a crash. And I went looking for her. And they told me that all the kids went to a hospital. And then I went to the hospital, and they had told me that she was killed. But I did not want to accept it. So I went home because the police was waiting for me there. So when I got there, the police told me that, yeah, she actually had died in a crash. And I thought I was in the movie, and I was the worst moment of my life. And I said, why? Why her? I don't want to be one of those parents that have lost a child. I knew then, though, that I will do everything to make sure that what happened to her won't happen to any of you. The picture that you see right there is my son hugging me at her funeral. And I don't remember anything, but I want to show you that this is reality. And this happened. And this happened to her. And it wasn't fair. You see, I was finally able to read the report. And what happened was that when they were going home, he was taking 3 girls home, 3 16-year-olds. Valentina was in the back seat right behind her girlfriend that was sick. Next to her was her best friend. Driving was the friend who was a week shy of 18. As he's driving and taking the girls home, the girls fell asleep because they were tired, even though they were only 5 blocks away. He saw a coworker passing by. They got side by side, and they challenged each other to a street race. It was on. He said, let's do this. He took off and he was going over 80 miles an hour. When he saw in front of him was the yellow light turning red. He couldn't stop anymore. He kept going. He hit a lady that was coming back from work, and then he went right through a fence. When Valentina's best friend woke up, Valentina was hanging from the window. She broke her neck, and she was killed due to her head injuries. She never made it to the sleepover. And I thought to myself, what did I do wrong? What did she do wrong? Was she bad because she went to a sleepover? Was she bad because she went to a party? Was I a bad mom because I let her go spend the night? And I said to myself, hadn't he not taken the challenge of the race? Hadn't he not decided to go over 80 miles an hour? My daughter would be alive. And I said, 80 miles an hour killed Valentina. A street race killed my daughter. I knew if he didn't do that, I would have picked her up the next day and she would have been okay. You see, I learned a lot. I learned that when you crash, it's not just one crash, it's 3 of them. The first one is the vehicle against an object. The other one is the human body against an object. And the third one is your organs against your body, which can kill you. What can we do if we're challenged to a race? We can protect ourselves. We can say no. What can we do if the driver that we are with wants to speed? We can say, let me out of this car. Or we can convince him not to do it because we have to protect our lives and we have to make the driver respect our lives if the driver is not respecting his or her lives. See, when you're at the wheel, you have the power to respect the road you're on and to respect your own life and protect those that are with you. I know that the driver that killed Valentina didn't wake up that morning and say, I'm going to kill a friend. It was his decision in that moment. But I know now that when I'm talking to you guys, you can respect your life when you're in that vehicle and stop anybody from ending up in a memorial like the one you see right here. This is Valentina's memorial. We don't want to end up in a memorial. None of our friends want to end up in a memorial. And we can avoid it 100%. This is Valentina's last tweet. Only love and death change all things. December 1st, 2013. She wrote that at 11:42 p.m. I will never know why she wrote it, but I'm going to tell you something. Her death has changed my life forever. And I've also seen that the love that I have for her has changed my life forever as well. And I've seen so many people that love changes their life. So I would love to change your life and not that of any friends or anyone. I would love to be in your life because I see a bright future for you all as you become future drivers, because you can change the future of no more crashes. We just want you to make sure that you make it home safe every day. The slow and sturdy wins the race. And be the driver you will love the people that you love the most to be. Your life and the life of others depends on your daily driving. And if you want to race, you can save it for the track. I want you all to please, please live what Valentina couldn't live and let love change your life forever. Thank you.
In case you missed Monday through Wednesday's webinar, we are super excited to announce the opening of our new Florida Teen Safe Driving Coalition Ambassador Program. If you are a high school student in Florida who is passionate about making a difference in your community and you want to help promote teen safe driving practices and save lives on the road, we would love to have you. There's no application required. Just scan the QR code on the next screen to register. The next screen will be a QR code that will take you to the post quiz for today's webinar. Please complete it to be entered for a chance to win the Chick-fil-A gift card. We hope to see you tomorrow at our Road Ready webinar discussing breakdowns, maintenance, traffic stops, and emergencies. Thank you so much for attending and stay safe.